Armen Levack, 104.5 The Team, 104.5theteam.com. We are live from Clubhouse Racebook. Come see us today. Herm Edwards now joining us on the phone thanks to McLean Food Service. And Coach Herm, we just made the announcement that we're going to give our listeners the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl with us. You played in a Super Bowl as a player. What do you think about when you think about those Super Bowl memories? And what would you tell a fan what the game is like, what that experience is like?
Well, I think it's a sporting event that really has grown bigger over the years, and obviously Super Bowl 15 is a lot different than the Super Bowl that they're about to play. I think for a fan, the experience of watching two teams compete to become a world champion, regardless if it's your team or not, I think the atmosphere that whole week is fan friendly. There's so many things that fans can do now anymore. In Arizona hosts a good Super Bowl. I've been there before, obviously covering it. So I think for the fan experience to go to a game where you're actually going to see the world champion be crowned, I think it's a special occasion. Good
stuff. Herm Edwards with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team every single Monday at 5:15. Coach joins us thanks to McLean Food Service. And Coach, let's start with the hard stuff. The Giants lose yesterday by 1 point to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tony Dungy doesn't dodge any punches, says that Tom Coughlin should step down. What is the best option for 68-year-old Tom Coughlin at this point?
Well, he's got enough credibility in that organization where they'll have a conversation and see where he wants to head this team, whether he's the head coach or and move into administration position. I don't know that. I know he's going to obviously get a lot to say on going forward where this team should go. So he's earned that with what he's done there in his tenure. 2 Super Bowl victories says a lot about his ability to coach. Obviously, this year was a tough year for him. And it's just football is like that. It's just it kind of goes in peaks and valleys. If you stay long enough. Obviously, sometimes you're going to hit some valleys.
Coach Dungy also said that he didn't feel like he should be fired, that Coughlin should not be fired. As a man who held the clipboard, as a man who's greatly respected, would it change your opinion of the New York Giants if they did fire Tom Coughlin?
I understand it's a business, and I think the Giants are a classy organization. They'll go about doing it the correct way, whatever they decide, and that'll have a lot to do with conversation they have with Coach Coughlin. So, it's always from the outside. When you're not inside the building, you always wonder what goes on. But I can tell you this: when it comes to those guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, New England Patriots, there are reasons that these teams seem to find their way in Super Bowls and win some. So it's because of it starts with ownership and how they go about treating the people that work for their organization.
Coach Herm with Armen and Levack. Well, Coach, it's interesting because, they got rid of last year's offensive coordinator, Kevin Gilbride. They bring in Ben McAdoo. Now there's talks with the defense. The Giants' defense ranked as one of the worst in the NFL, that they could bring in a new defensive coordinator. If you bring in a new offensive coordinator one year, a new DC the next year, what does that say in regards to the head coach, the guy above both of those positions?
Well, it doesn't say a whole lot. I mean, when you're a coach, you always seem to change your staff. I mean, sometimes you lose coaches due to the fact that they become head coaches, and sometimes you might want to change your philosophy. That's been done offensively. Defensively, they might want to do that as well. But regardless of what you do, I think it all starts with players. What players do you have? And that's the key. Whether you have a philosophy of run, pass, it really doesn't matter. Defense, if you want to play man-to-man zone, if you want to play 3-4, 4-3, has nothing to do with it. It's the players you have. Can your philosophy obviously put them in position so they can have success? And sometimes you have to obviously mold that philosophy around the players that you have at that point in time.
Coach, you bring up a great point, too. Does Coughlin and his staff get a pass this year because of all the injuries? Like these great players like Schwartz is down again, DRC looks hurt, Jennings has been out, Cruz is out, like Beeson. Do you give these guys a pass because of how many players they lost to the injured list?
Well, I think injuries are part of the National Football League. We see it all the time, and that's part of it. We've all dealt with it as coaches. You're hoping that the guys that are available to play can play at a winning level for you. And sometimes that asks a little bit too much for guys that are that are backup players. There's a reason there's a starting core of players, and they're your best players. And when you lose those guys, and you lose them in bunches, especially on both sides of the ball, it makes it very difficult. And so I just think all those things have to be looked upon. And the organization will do that. I mean, that's up to them. That's up to the owners and the GM, and they'll have that conversation. It's easy for us to sit here and obviously have our own opinions, but our opinions don't count. And I'm glad they don't, because I think people that are in that building understand their situation better than anybody. We see a lot of what goes on the outskirts of it, but we don't see the inner workings of it, and we shouldn't, because that's not our job to do that. Our job is to look at what we see and obviously raise questions. But I think the answers are in the building, and they'll come up with a solution, and sooner or later we'll know what the outcome is.
Yeah, good thing Levack and our opinions don't count, because if they did, I think a Pee Wee team could destroy our team that we would put together at this point. Coach Herm Edwards with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team, brought to you by McLean Food Service. Coach, the Giants outscored 22-3 in the second half. What happened to the Giants at halftime going into that second half? What was the biggest difference that you saw?
Well, first of all, I thought Jacksonville was going to win this game. I picked Jacksonville this week to beat the Giants, to be quite honest.
Whoa.
I just thought after last week's loss took a lot out of the Giants. It's very difficult when you put that much energy into a football game and you're not winning to lose a game like that. And then now you go play a team in the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that really, is not one of our better teams right now. They have a quarterback that probably has a nice future, but they have some players. And, they're going to play hard every week because they want to, they got something to prove. And so it didn't surprise me that Jacksonville won this game, guys. I mean, it's not like, well, I'm shocked. I'm not shocked. I mean, it's no different than I thought 2 weeks ago the Raiders would beat the Chiefs. Because this is football, and this is what makes it so unique about football. So we can look at the first half, the second half. Look, the Giants are a 3-9 football team. There's a reason they're 3-9. They actually played all those games to get that record. Okay, so and I get it. I've been in that role. I've sat in that seat where you've lost more than you won, and it's not a whole lot of fun. And we're always trying to figure out, well, what did they do wrong in this? Look, they're 3-9. That's their record. Okay, there's a reason they're 3-9, and we don't have enough time on this phone to talk about what they need to do, what they might want to do. This is football, and you see it every week. You see teams that we think that are pretty good, and all of a sudden they go somewhere and a team that doesn't have a winning record beats them. We saw the Saints the last 3 weeks lose at home, and they go into Pittsburgh and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, I mean, you don't know. This is what makes it so great. It's competitive league, and it's good. It's good for football that teams that have losing records can actually beat teams with winning records.
Coach, that Buffalo Bills defensive line, how good are they? Are they the best in the NFL?
I hate to say the best. I don't get into all that. They're one of the best, obviously. They've played really good defense all year, and they needed to win this game at home. They've let 2 games get away in the Miami game and the Jet game, in the Kansas City game that they had in the fourth quarter, and errors caused them to not win those games. They play a Cleveland Brown team that has won some games in the fourth quarter. They found a way to get another win. You're talking about the Buffalo Bills, and now they sit, in a pretty good seat. They're 7-5, but I don't know if they get in or not, because I think those 2 games that they lost in the fourth quarter, one of those games might come back to get them.
Coach Herm Edwards with Armen and Levack, thanks to McLean Food Service. Well, Coach, with the quarterback Kyle Orton and his history, it's hard to believe that Kyle Orton could lead a team into the playoffs, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know about that. Why are we beating up Kyle Orton?
He's never won a playoff game. He's never started in a playoff game. He's never led a team into the playoffs.
What does that mean? So does that mean we should say he can't do it? I mean, I don't know that. I think that he can. You probably wouldn't want him on your team, but obviously Doug Marrone feels like he's the right guy. That's why they brought him in, and he's got it. They're in position now to go 7-5, and Kyle Orton's a guy that obviously, when you look at him, he's got a lot of experience. He's not asked to carry this team. The defense is asked to carry this team. This is how this team is built. He's got an outstanding defense. And if they can run the ball, that takes a lot of pressure off Kyle Orton. He's going to have to make some throws in a football game to put points up on the board. And he showed the ability to do that at a time. So as we sit here and criticize, it's easy to say that. It's kind of like in Houston right now. Ryan Fitzpatrick was benched, and he was in Buffalo, and yesterday he threw 6 touchdown passes. So we can have all the opinions we want, but it's great about sports is every time you go out there, you get an opportunity, and you have an opportunity to try to win a game. And so we can criticize and say the guy can't do that. Well, he can't do it unless you give him an opportunity.
Coach, Doug Marrone has had every excuse. This Bills team, they could have thrown out stinkers in the last 2 weeks, and people wouldn't have blamed them with everything they've been through. Yet they go out and win 2 straight. What does that tell you about the job that Coach Marrone is doing?
Fabulous job. And Doug's a good football coach, good football mind. He got this team on track the last couple of weeks after they lost some games. The key to these guys, they lost 2 critical games. And they found a way to go to Detroit and win a game that was going to be very tough against a good football team on the road. And then they turned back around in a short week and had to play again and beat a Cleveland Brown team that has been on the rise and that have won games in the fourth quarter. So it says a lot about the players, the coaching staff, everything they've done. They're going to make a run at this, although I do think they might fall short because of the 2 games they lost at home. The Kansas City game, which I think they had a chance to win. They fumbled some balls in the fourth quarter. And it was the same with the Miami game. So hopefully those games don't come back to haunt them. But I think in the last bit of this run, it might come back.
Armen Levack, 104.5 The Team. Coach, we have the Monday Night Football game tonight right here on this station, 104.5 The Team. You're home for Jets football. Jets, Dolphins, what are you looking for in this game from these 2 teams, specifically, of course, Rex Ryan's crew?
Well, obviously, last time they played at home against a pretty good football team was the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they dismantled them as far as defensively. They got after the quarterback, and I think that's where he's going to lay his hat on is the defense. Try to make these guys one-handed, take the runner away, as well as the quarterback. The quarterback has a lot of skill, especially with the option. He can run. He does throw a lot of balls down the field. He throws intermediate routes. I do think he'll take some shots at the Jets down the field because of the fact that their secondary has kind of been in flux last couple of weeks, and they've given up over 20-something touchdown passes. So I think they'll try to do that. But both these teams have good fronts. Miami has an outstanding defense. They got guys up front that can rush you. They got a nice secondary. Don't give up a bunch of big plays. Geno Smith's a guy. He's going to have to protect the football. I think the mindset of the Jets will be run the ball on the Dolphins, try to keep it close in the fourth quarter, and win a big game at home.
Coach, Ray Rice now eligible. Do you think there's a shot a team gives him a chance to play this season?
I think some teams will do their due diligence to look at him. I don't know that. I mean, I'm not in the room with those teams. I think there's some teams that already reached out to him that have talked to him, to his agent. I don't know if he plays this year. He's missed a lot of football. There's only 4 games left, and you talk about teams that might be interested in him. If he's going to play, it have to be playoff teams. There's a few that come to mind. Obviously, Indianapolis is a team where the head coach there was in Baltimore. The Buffalo Bills coach was in Baltimore at one time. The Detroit Lions coach was Caldwell was in Baltimore at one time. I heard the Saints. They're looking for a running back, a guy that could catch the football. So who knows? I mean, I don't think he's coming back this year, but we have to wait and see.
Coach, do you think they should make him play with the Raiders as the last part of the punishment? I'm a lifelong Raiders fan. That's why.
You're not a Raiders fan?
No, I'm a lifelong Raiders fan. I've been suffering for a little bit.
Well, that's your problem. You have that attitude that you're going to suffer, so you probably deserve it. But I just think, we make fun of the Raiders, but, those guys are, they ran into a buzzsaw last week when they went to play the Rams. And you look at the Rams, they beat some pretty good football teams. So, that's not a good place to play. And that defense is starting to play very well. But I do think the Raiders have some key components. I think they've got a quarterback of the future. I think they've got a couple pieces on defense. The kid out of Buffalo, Mack, is going to be a good player. So I'm hoping sooner than later that the Raiders obviously find a way to get this thing turned around. It's good when they're relevant. It helps our league. They've meant a lot to our league for a long time when they were in the mix, and hopefully sooner or later they'll get back in the mix.
Ooh, Levack is glowing right now.
I predict them to win every year.
Yeah, for the record, he thought they were going to be 500. So he didn't predict suffering, but he is definitely embracing it. Coach Herm Edwards with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team, brought to you by McLean Food Service. And Coach, thank you so much last week for
awesome.
taking your time to showing us the Sports Center studios. That's a really cool place that you work, and just the fact that you would spend the amount of time that you did and show us around the studios. We had a great time, so wanted to thank you again for your hospitality last week. That was really cool.
Well, pleasure's all mine. You guys have some wonderful guests with you, and we have an obligation to everyone that we talk to, especially when we're on the air, to try to get it right, to try to give fans another view. We can have opinions, and they're fine, but we have to. It's our responsibility to allow people to know why things happen. It's easy to have be a commentator and all that kind of stuff, but you got to open people's eyes and their minds and let them know why things happen and occur. And I think football is a great venue to talk about that. There's a lot of great things that happen every week, and we can't ever figure it all out. We try to, but it's very difficult. Very competitive league, and I think it's good for football when it's competitive like this.
Coach Herm Edwards with Armen and Levack. Coach, thanks for your time today. We look forward to it next week.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Have a great day, Coach.